Hello, listeners. My name is Lizzie Bianco, and I am thrilled to welcome you back to another episode of RCDA's The Gazette Podcast. As I'm sure you've caught on by now, each month we try to feature guests whose expertise aligns with the significant event our office is hosting or specific times of recognition. June's episode is no exception, as I was fortunate enough to sit down with our first Executive Assistant District Attorney, Mr. Thomas Ridges, to discuss gun violence and issues related to firearms impacting Staten Island during Gun Violence Awareness Month. ADA Ridges' personal experiences, as well as his professional life as a police officer and prosecutor, factor into what I consider to be a very nuanced perspective on this important topic. I have no doubt you will find that what he has to say is just as interesting as I do. So enough of the hosting. Let's get into the interviewing. June is Gun Violence Awareness Month, and this episode we're joined by a very special guest, RCDA's first Executive Assistant District Attorney, Thomas Ridges. Tom, how are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Doing well, thanks for asking.
Good.
Before we get into the nitty-gritty talking about gun violence and firearms, first, would you mind explaining what your role is here at the RCDA and how matters related to gun violence factor into it?
Well, as first executive ADA with the Staten Island District Attorney's Office, I am the chief liaison with NYPD executives, where we talk about precision policing, police strategies, crime patterns. I also oversee the newly created RCDA firearms unit. I also supervise the detective investigator squad, which is comprised of our detectives, most of them retired NYPD first grade detectives. I oversee the tech team, which goes out and pulls video, and the crime strategies unit, which is also responsible for monitoring, tracking crime patterns in and around the borough. I also interact with other law enforcement agencies on a daily call that we do that I hope we get to talk about later with regards to gun violence around the city. I also oversee long-term investigations as they relate to gang violence, gun violence, crew violence, etc. So I wear a lot of different hats as the first executive ADA as it relates to gun violence, amongst other things.
You certainly do. Some people may know this already, but there may be some that do not. You've served New York City as both a police officer with the New York City Police Department and then also as a prosecutor in both the Kings County District Attorney's Office and now the Richmond County District Attorney's Office. How have your experiences in these roles shaped your opinions on the importance of gun violence prevention?
Yes, well, a lot of people don't know, most know, but a lot don't know that I was a police officer with the New York City Police Department. I'm retired from the police department where I served in various units, the street crime unit, which was responsible for citywide coverage, going around arresting people who carried guns. I've also been a member of the emergency service unit, which responded to emergency situations. I was a prosecutor in the Brooklyn DA's office before joining DA McMahon, where 7 of those years in the Brooklyn DA's office, I was assigned the Homicide Bureau, where I've prosecuted over 50 homicide cases. So I had a chance to see firsthand gun violence and the effect of gun violence. But what I also like to remind people is before any of those titles or positions, I grew up in the Bedford-Stuyvesant section of Brooklyn in the 70s and 80s when it was one of the most violent neighborhoods in the city. So as a police officer, I responded to scenes of shootings. I had the unfortunate task sometimes to notify family members about loved ones that had been shot or had succumbed to gun violence. I've seen way too many autopsy photos, way too many crime scene photos. I've attended too many memorials, and I've prosecuted too many homicide cases. And as a homicide prosecutor, you sat down with loved ones and you basically learned about the life that had been lost through the family members. And far too many times, I saw hope that had been squashed out as a result of gun violence and potential that had been taken away.
often when you're in law enforcement, you look at things as crime statistics, right? And their numbers. But hearing your stories really solidifies the reality that these aren't numbers, these are people, these are families. This has a real lasting impact on many, many New Yorkers. And that's why it's important to try to do what we can to make it have less of an impact on even less New Yorkers. And you mentioned that RCDA recently established a firearms unit. Would you like to speak about that a little bit?
Well, the firearms unit was created because we saw an uptick in gun violence. And one thing I can say about DA McMahon, he's laser focused on dealing with the problems in and around Staten Island as they relate to violence. He's a huge proponent of victim advocacy and understands that cases are more than just names on folders. They are people and they are lives that are affected. So with the uptick in gun violence, he dedicated resources, financial and human personnel, to the newly created firearms unit to focus on those cases and deal with possession, shootings, shots fired, and any cases that are involving a weapon, trafficking as well.
In addition to the work that you do with the RCDA, you also mentioned that you join a call every day talking about strategies in gun violence prevention. Would you mind speaking a bit about that initiative?
Yeah, that initiative came about. It was a wonderful creation by Chauncey Parker from Hyder, along with Terry Tobin and Lisa Kabir. They are the ones that came up with this idea about collaboration. Every day I get on this call at 10 a.m. It usually lasts approximately an hour, sometimes a little more. And there are over 30 agencies on that call at the city level, the state level, the federal level, and also other jurisdictions, other states. And we come together every morning to discuss the worst of the worst when it comes to gun violence. And we try to figure out ways to make those cases better and how to enhance those cases so we can try to deal with this uptick of violence when it comes to guns, gun possessions. I mean, there was a period of time where we saw several days where the city did not have a homicide. I don't know how we were ever able to do it before this creation of this daily gun call where everybody had their information in a silo. And what we accomplished within that hour would sometimes take several phone calls. I'd have to call one agency, I'd have to call another agency, then wait for a call back. This basically allows us to do what took numerous phone calls, hours of waiting in the matter of a daily gun call. We've had over 1,100 meetings to this point. I believe it's 1,150 plus meetings. And it's not just the Monday to Friday. We reach out to each other on the weekends if necessary, if there's an arrest that comes in. It's wonderful collaboration and communication by all the partners. And like I said, at various levels.
In addition to this call, other ways that RCDA tries to get involved with spreading awareness about gun violence and specifically prevention of gun violence is participating in several events throughout the month of June each year, like our Wear Orange Day, where the office all wears our and gun violence t-shirts and we take a picture together. Why do you think that it's important to raise awareness about gun violence?
I think it's necessary to call attention to it because it shows the human side. As I said earlier, cases are faces and stats are lives. There are a lot of people who are not personally affected by gun violence, so we need to bring awareness to them of the problems and issues. And then there are people that are personally affected by gun violence, and we need to share and show compassion to them. Of all the trials I've done, I always said there are no winners at a trial. You have loved ones that are lost to gun violence. You have family members on the other side that may be losing someone to the prison system, incarceration. So there are no winners when it comes to this. If there is a problem and you don't address it, I've always said, then you're either encouraging it or you're accepting it. Luckily, here at RCDA, we do neither. We're not encouraging it, we're not accepting it, we're combating it. And we're combating it through many means, not just bringing awareness to it, but we also do the gun buyback where we try to take guns off the street. So you're not going to get every gun, but that one gun that you get will not be responsible for taking a life. We do the prosecution. We go after those who carry guns, those that use guns. I always say Guns are like umbrellas. You're not carrying them unless you plan to use them. The daily meetings that I mentioned a few moments ago, the investigations. And I love the fact that anytime I go to the DA with an idea or an approach to attacking gun violence, he always says, yes. What's the question? So it's always like a yes first. And, he's a zealous proponent of combating gun violence and making the streets safe for the people of Staten Island. And I love the fact that he trusts and supports me. But like I said, I'm just carrying out his message, his mission, and his policy of public safety, victim advocacy, and let's make the streets safer for everyone else.
You mentioned our gun buybacks, and DA McMahon is actually going to speak about that in a bit during this episode. But your mention of that reminded me of something that New Yorkers or listeners in general may not have a full comprehension of, and that's ghost guns. Would you mind explaining what ghost guns are and why they present such an issue?
Ghost gun is just a name for untraceable firearms. And these are guns that are being 3D printed. So the governor recently signed some legislation that gives us another tool in the toolbox to attack those that want to create, sell, traffic in ghost guns. And it makes it harder as a ghost gun to figure out the identity of the gun, hence the term ghost gun. It's unserialized, untraceable, and it's just another way that those that want to commit crimes figure they can evade law enforcement. But now, with this additional and new tool in the toolbox, we will go after them as well.
That's very reassuring to hear. Is there anything else that you would like to add on the topic or that you feel you'd like to mention?
Well, just that, I'm noticing that the shooters and the gun carriers are getting younger and younger. The people that are pulling the trigger are younger. The people that are getting hit by those bullets are younger. And I like to say that when kids are firing guns, they're usually firing those guns at other kids. Unfortunately, sometimes innocent bystanders also get hit because when a gun is fired, it will stop at the first object that is in its way, even if it's not the intended target. And as a result of some recent legislation, raise the age, we've had unintended consequences. This is not about the raise the age law per se, but I understand that sometimes you end up with unintended consequences. And I think some of the older gang and crew members realize, well, based on raise the age, let's have the younger kids carry the guns because if they're caught with the gun, the consequences are not as severe as if I'm carrying the gun. So the younger kids are being preyed upon by the older kids that are forcing them to carry the gun, or to use the term they call them, the holster. They're making them the holster for the gun. So we've seen a lot of that. But when we look at the stats and we look at the age of, like I said, those being apprehended with guns and those being assaulted by gun violence, the ages are coming down.
As citizens or people that work in law enforcement, what can we do to try to get through to our youth or protect them? What do you think could be some strategies moving forward?
Not necessarily sure of all the strategies because, like I often say, by the time it gets to us in the criminal justice system, that young man, young woman, because it's not gender specific, by the time they get to us in the criminal justice system, they've had several touches by other agencies
Mm.
before that. And some of those agencies, you know what, I'd like to see them do the outreach, get the message out there. Don't let this be you. Talk about the innocence, talk about future, talk about potential, talk about hope, talk about all the other opportunities that are out there for them, as opposed to picking up a gun or joining a crew, whether it's through social media. These young kids now, the best way to reach them is through social media.
Mhm.
And so maybe we need to take on a social media approach to get the word out to them that this doesn't have to be you. You have your whole life ahead of you. Don't throw it away. Don't have it taken away through gun violence. We need to do that. I just think that just like we collaborate every morning at 10 a.m. to talk about those that have reached our table and have picked up a gun, maybe there needs to be some collaboration to talk about the first time someone is misbehaving. What can we do to prevent him from getting to that 10 a.m. table.
Mhm.
I look forward every day to the day when I can get on that 10 a.m. call and they say, we got nothing to talk about today because nobody got arrested with a gun, nobody fired a gun, nobody lost their life as a result of gun violence. That's the day I look forward to. That is my North Star, that I want to get to that day when I get on that 10 a.m. call and they go, oh, we got nothing to talk about today.
Slowly but surely, I hope that we will get there, and you are certainly carving the way for us to do so. So, thank you for all of your work as a police officer. Thank you for all of your work as a prosecutor. And thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me today.
I'll take your thank yous, but none of this would be possible for me to do without the support and trust of DA McMahon and his confidence and allowing me to oversee these units and to collaborate with those other agencies. And I'm just putting forth his message and carrying out his mission.
And speaking of DA McMahon's mission, we all know that no episode of the Gazette would be complete without speaking to the man himself. So I am joined here by our very own district attorney, Mr. Michael McMahon. Mr. DA, how are you today?
Doing fine, Elizabeth. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. We're talking about gun violence and gun violence awareness since June is a month that is dedicated to that topic. What are some of the efforts that RCDA has engaged with to spread awareness about this very significant issue?
Sure. Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you for your work on this very important topic and all of your work with our podcast, which we launched earlier this year. I think this is edition number
5.
5. And so you're doing a great job with this.
Thank
Who
you,
would have
sir.
known that you'd be a producer of podcasts? You never know what talents we have and what abilities lie within us. So thank you for stepping up and doing this. And you're right. Gun Awareness Month, which is June, is very important for us here at the Richmond County District Attorney's Office. Earlier this month, all the members of our staff stood together wearing our orange, which is the color that signifies solidarity with gun violence awareness and what that means. And the office came together and we stood together as prosecutors, as victim advocates, as analysts, as paralegals, as the people who support us in every way in this office, because no issue defines really the importance of our work more than gun violence awareness. We've seen too many cases where people's lives have been lost or ruined forever at the end of a gun. And really, the epidemic that we see in this country with illegal guns has to be dealt with. We see mass shootings, fortunately not on Staten Island, but you never know it's possible. But we've seen a 14-year-old boy killed in the schoolyard in Stapleton. We've seen mothers and daughters and fathers and brothers killed, whether it's a random act of violence or whether it's intentional. No one should fall victim to the violence and the hurt and the possible death of gun violence. And so we're working very hard here in our office. As you know, overall shootings are down on Staten Island, and non-fatal shootings and shots fired. And of course, we have the lowest homicide rate in the history of Staten Island. So crime is down, but gun cases have been up because unfortunately too many young people now, with the advent of the Raise the Age law and the state legislature basically saying that kids carrying guns is okay with them and it's okay with the courts. Too many judges are not dealing with it appropriately, so that we have to do what we can in this office to stem the tide of these illegal guns, especially amongst young people. So we established a firearms safety unit within our trials bureau, and we have ADAs who are trained specifically in ballistics and forensics and how to prosecute a gun case. Make it quite clear that if someone's arrested with an illegal gun on Staten Island, we will ask for bail and we will ask for significant prison time based on that particular crime and then the individual's record. We do not take these cases lightly, and we're very serious about them.
While we're on the topic of RCDA's prosecutorial approach, why don't we turn the microphone over to Sophie Selwood to gain insight into one of our office's most recent convictions?
Reporting to you from the Courtroom Corner, this is Community Liaison Sophie Selwood.
Court is now in session.
Today, I would like to highlight a conviction secured earlier this month by Assistant District Attorney Amir Fadol and Hannah Curley. A 38-year-old resident of Silver Lake, defendant Raymond Walmart committed a series of sex crimes against a child victim under his care between July of 2019 and February of 2024. Thankfully, during his recent trial, a Staten Island jury found Walmart guilty of coarse sexual conduct against a child in the first degree, as well as criminal sexual act in the second degree, the top counts indicted against him. Throughout this trial, we saw both the very worst of society and the best of society. We saw a defendant who violated the trust placed in him, but we also witnessed the extraordinary courage, strength, and resilience of a young victim who came forward, told the truth, and endured the difficult process of seeking justice. We commend the bravery of this child victim whose voice made this conviction possible. No child should ever have to experience such abuse, and no victim should ever feel alone or afraid to come forward. While no verdict can eradicate this victim's suffering or change their past, this conviction is an important step towards due justice. It is our hope that this verdict provides the victim with some solace and enables her to begin healing from this traumatic experience as she deserves. Listeners of the Gazette, this has been the Courtroom Corner. You are dismissed.
Thank you, Sophie. Now, Mr. DA, you often say that your goal when you came into office was to make the RCDA a modern prosecutor's office. How is this approach applicable in the realm of gun violence awareness?
We do things, not only prosecution, but also prevention. We try to get the word out. We're in the schools. We're talking at civic meetings and community meetings about the dangers of gun possession and illegal gun use in our borough. So we continue with that work. We also have the gun buyback, which allows us to offer to folks to come in anonymously and turn in any illegal firearms that they may have. And for handguns, they're paid $500. And for rifles, they're paid at $200. And we're going to have another one on July 11th from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. at the New Hope Community Church, which is in West Brighton at 77 Alaska Street. So we're hoping that anyone who can hear this, if they know that there's a gun in their home or someone who has one, it's a very good time to, as I say, anonymously bring it in, and you actually get paid for it. And that's one of our efforts. And under my tenure, we've taken in over 1,000 guns, and we're very proud of that work. And it's all part of what we're doing, again, to stem the tide of gun violence in our community.
Thank you very much, Mr. DA. And that brings us to the end of the episode. In putting this episode together, something that's lingered with me is ADA Ridge's astute observation that if there is a problem and you don't address it, you are either encouraging it or accepting it. Both DA McMahon and I mentioned the photo RCDA staff takes each June standing in opposition to gun violence. And for that photo, we have a special shirt we encourage everyone to wear. And on that shirt, it says, "Stop the silence, end gun violence." I mention this as I believe it harkens back to ADA Ridge's comments. Your voice wields more power than you know. I want to take this episode as an opportunity to challenge all of you, our listeners, to use your voices in furtherance of a mission you're passionate about. It doesn't have to be gun violence prevention, but we at the RCDA certainly wouldn't mind if it was. I want to thank you all for listening to this month's episode. I hope you enjoyed the show. Until next time, stay safe and be well.